6 more movies from 2021 that I have not yet reviewed. We're tackling movies that came out in the month of August, and they really run the gamut grade-wise. We have some really good ones here and some very, very poor ones here as well. So we're going to talk about all of them right now. Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It, and tackling August 2021 releases. We're aiming for 200 2021 movies when all is said and done here, and I will give you then my best and worst of the year video. That's always a pretty good time. But before that, we have a couple dozen movies to get to before I reach 200 movies for 2021. So right now we're tackling 6 movies that came out in August of that year. And obviously, some of the bigger ones I've already tackled. I've already reviewed in longer form videos. So I'm not going to worry about those. Looking only at these 6 movies that I have not yet talked about on the channel. And they are The Kissing Booth 3 and Beckett, both of those on Netflix. The Protege, The Night House, Flag Day, and Candyman. So, like I mentioned earlier, the grades really are going to run the gamut here, as you'll see. But also, the genres are sort of all over the place. We've got a rom-com in The Kissing Booth, and a thriller in Beckett, and action thriller, I guess, in The Protege. We've got a couple of horror movies, and a drama about family in Flag Day. So, a lot of variety here in both the grades and the plot lines, and we're just going to go in the order that I mentioned them. That was the order of release, so we're going to start with The Kissing Booth 3, and it's funny, I didn't actually realize that I gave the other 2 movies in this, I want to say genre, but this franchise, negative grades. I thought maybe I kind of liked the first one. No, I gave I think the highest is a C+ for this series. So how does number 3 compare? Well, in this one, we have Joey King here, again, playing the lead role and caught in a love triangle. Here we have post-graduation, and what are we going to do for college? Elle, the main character, is having trouble deciding going to Berkeley or Harvard. One of her men is going to one, and the other one is hanging around the other. So, okay, what are we going to do here? You've got this love triangle. This is the climax of the franchise, and it's got to be satisfying, right, to figure out what happens. No, I really don't care. I got through this movie, and what's funny is I like Joey King. I think she's pretty talented. She could be one to watch here in the coming years, but these movies, and I know they're based on books, so there's most likely, I think there's 4 books, but the second movie, I think, tackled both of them at once, like books 2 and 3, if I'm remembering that correctly. But, if not, look, it's The Kissing Booth. I don't think anyone really cares, but this one tackles, I guess, that 4th and final book. But not only do I not necessarily care about the love triangle, but the plot of the film doesn't really make any sense to me. We're in the middle of the summer, and this girl still has not decided what college she's going to. No, that's not how college works. You have to decide ahead of that so they can give you a space in classes, and they can get you in the dorms, and like all of this. You can't just decide in the middle of August, I guess I'll go to Harvard now. So right away, the plot doesn't make any sense, really. And, her decisions are, I guess, typical of an 18-year-old girl, so I can't really fault the movie too much for that. But, other than a few scenes where I got some enjoyment, like the main plot of this one, instead of the classic list of rules that we were reverting to in the first 2 movies, we do talk about the rules a little bit, but sort of the main fun part of this movie is that she finds a list of, bucket list type stuff before, not she kicks the bucket, but before she ends up, going to college. And so they end up doing a bunch of the things on the list. And, like there's one where they want to play a real life Mario Kart game. So they go to this racetrack, like with go-karts, and they all have like, stupid little things to like throw at the other people, water balloons and stuff like that. I mean, that was enjoyable to watch. I can't deny that. And they've always been big on Dance Dance Revolution. That was sort of a main plot in the first movie. So we see a little bit of that here. So there's like a few scenes that provide fun and mirth, and the acting's fine for this type of movie. You've got Molly Ringwald again reprising the role as Elle's mother, but she comes off as a real jerk in most of this movie. Not Molly Ringwald, but Elle, the Joey King character. And other than those few, like, really fun scenes, this movie doesn't really offer much. And again, the entire plot makes zero sense with her deciding what college to go to, like, in the middle of August. So, I cheated on a D+ here, but you know what? I think this deserves a little bit lower than the other two, so I'm going to give The Kissing Booth 3 a D. All right, let's move on to Beckett. Like with my other month-by-month wrap-ups from 2021, these are not going to be long reviews, about 3-4 minutes for each, and then we'll move on, since these are, you know, movies that are 6 months old at this point. So this stars John David Washington and Alicia Vikander as well as tourists vacationing in Greece. And due to some bad circumstances, there is now a manhunt after a big accident, and John David Washington's character learns of this lost child who may or may not be a government conspiracy plot and all of this. So he's got to try and reach the embassy to clear his name and figure out, you know, what to do. And of course, along the way, you know, who to trust becomes a big issue. This is, you know, a pretty fun movie for the genre. John David Washington, if you don't know, the son of Denzel. We've seen him in a couple of movies so far. I would say most notably The Black Klansman, which was, you know, an excellent movie. I think that was an A or an A+ for me. But yeah, he's a very charismatic guy on the screen, much like his father. But he definitely has his own identity. I don't see Denzel when I'm watching him, and I think that's, you know, to his benefit. You know, so we don't get the comparisons, even though I just kind of did. But I think he really is, you know, carving out his own name as an actor, which is awesome. And the last name is sort of generic enough that you wouldn't naturally associate, oh, that must be Denzel's son. You know, so this movie really sort of solidifies his chops as a potential action star. There's a lot of really, really great sort of chase scenes here, and his, you know, heart palpitations of, oh my God, like, where am I going to go? What am I going to do? Who am I going to trust? Was definitely, you know, tangible coming out of the screen. I really liked the way that they set a lot of this stuff up. In terms of, you know, the action sort of scenes, they're all kind of generic. I mean, they were fun to watch. I can't deny that. But I'm not sure that they're, you know, elevating the game here or bringing anything new to the table. But, you know, for a typical, you know, American overseas, gets embroiled in something that maybe they do not need to be, and now they're on the run. You know, I think we've seen a lot of worse movies in this genre than Beckett. I think it's believable, too, in the sense of, you know, his dilemma. You know, who do you trust in this type of situation? There were a couple people where I was like, oh, no, like, they're bad or whatever, and they turn out to be fine, and vice versa. You know, I'm like, oh, yeah, he seems great, and then, you know, all of a sudden he pulls out a gun. So, you know, it did keep me guessing in that regard. So I actually think this is a pretty fun film, and this is a Netflix original, so you can get it on Netflix, and I'm going to leave Beckett with a B. Up next is The Night House. This is the first... up next is The Protege, our other, you know, action-based film. And this has a really good pedigree of people. I first saw the trailer for this earlier in the year. I think it was maybe when I went to see the movie Nobody, which was wonderful, by the way. And I saw this preview for this movie that looked kind of generic, but it was with Michael Keaton, Maggie Q, and Samuel L. Jackson. So I was like, okay... You know, this movie could potentially be really good. But it's about Anna, who is the Maggie Q character, rescued as a child by the legendary assassin Moody. And that is the Samuel L. Jackson character. Of course, anybody who's legendary, you know, has to be Sam Jackson. And then she is now the world's most skilled contract killer. Because of sort of her upbringing with the Moody character. So now, you know, she's got to vow some revenge and get back what's hers and all of the generic things. Michael Keaton actually is not in this movie very much. He's third billed, but realistically, I feel like, and maybe it's because his character is so generic. I guess he probably was in it a decent amount, but I'm used to seeing Michael Keaton, you know, doing more evolved roles than this. And Maggie Q, I think we all like and can agree that, yes, she needs to be in more movies and she needs to headline more movies. And I love ass-kicking females, you know, that's always sort of a go-to for me, from Charlize Theron and Zoe Saldana and Colombiana, and, you know, there's been a lot. You know, Maggie Q is good in the role. There's nothing necessarily wrong with her. And there's a lot of, you know, good fight sequences, a lot of, you know, martial arts type fight sequences, which I like. And, you know, some gunplay as well and swordplay. But, you know, the movie itself is just so generic. It's hard to really sort of put my finger on, like, okay, what other than maybe some good performances is setting this movie aside from 100 other ones in the same vein. And there's not really much. I don't regret watching it, but yeah, in terms of originality, it didn't really hit the mark for me. But Maggie Q really was great here, and I hope we see, you know, a bigger future for her in action films. She shows up, you know, periodically, and on TV as well. She shows up every so often, and is always a treat to see her. I think she might be on a show right now, come to think of it. But in any event, you know, this movie's just too generic for me to give a really high grade to, so I'm just going to leave The Protege with a C. So up next, we have The Night House, the first of our 2 horror movies, and this is a psychological thriller horror movie with Rebecca Hall at the helm. And here's another woman who, I think it's generally known that Rebecca Hall is like a decent actress, but I think she struggles to find projects that are, you know, worthy of her talent. And so for a while, I really didn't like her because every movie she was in wasn't very good. And then slowly I was like, okay, you know, maybe she's picking better projects now that she's getting more of a name or whatever it is. And I know, you know, look, she was in Iron Man 3. That was obviously a huge project, but it's my least favorite Marvel film until the Eternals came out. So that didn't really help either. But, this is, I think, finally a movie, that she is worthy of. And that the movie is worthy of her, I should say. This is a really, really tense psychological horror movie. It's basically, the plot is that she is this widow whose husband just recently died, and she is discovering secrets about the house in which you know, they lived, and her ex-husband, her widowed husband, the architect, built. So it's his house, and oh, is he still lingering about somewhere? Perhaps, because she keeps hearing a lot of things and finding out a lot of things that maybe she does not want to know about, you know, going more and more sort of crazy as we go along. And he committed suicide, so that sort of adds another layer to this story of the mystery behind, you know, who he was, even to her. And the chills are real in this movie. It was very, very riveting to me. And I didn't quite expect it. I thought, you know, because this got released in theaters and sort of came and went, it did not do very well. I think this and Protege might have come out the same weekend, and neither of them really lit up the box office. But this came and went so quickly, I thought, oh, well, this must, you know, kind of stink and whatever, another Rebecca Hall misfire. But no, it's one of the better horror movies of the year, I think, for me personally. Now, I will say, there were a few jump scares that I thought we could have done without, but sound is really such a key element in this movie. Not just from things, you know, like stereos starting up in the house, and we've seen that in many horror movies, of course, but it's always sort of chilling. But just sort of, you know, the sound of her own head comes into play in this movie too. So sound really is, you know, almost another character, but there's a few jump scares too many, and I can't really get behind that. But for me, she was excellent in this movie, and it's just proof again that she needs to be in more, you know, A-list films and not do so many bad ones. And this is really a great year for her too, because she had her directorial feature debut in the movie Passing, which came out, I think, just maybe a month or two after this. And that was another very, very good movie that I think the Oscars perhaps overlooked. This one, okay, this was never going to get any Oscar accolades, but in terms of horror movies of the year, this is one of the best for me. I'm going to leave Night House with an A-. And we'll leave Candyman for the end, because that came out the tail end of August, even though that is another horror movie, and, you know, we could sort of compare and contrast it. But let's go next to Flag Day. This is starring Sean Penn and his daughter, Dylan Penn. And he basically is this con artist that we see in some flashbacks doing his things, and his daughter, again, his real life daughter, Dylan, has to sort of come to terms with her father's past and hopefully forge a new relationship with him. And this is based on a true story about the fourth largest seizure of counterfeit bills in U.S. history, with nearly $20 million. So yes, he went to jail for quite a long time. All right, so this movie is awful. Sean Penn, I think he's quite hit or miss. He can turn in some good things, and then other times not so much. He directed this, and this is the first movie he's ever starred in that he also directed, and that was maybe a mistake, because both seem to fail. The directing is so shaky cam, so all over the place, and then there's montage after montage, which are not necessary, and then the time jumps. The only way you can really truly tell is that, is the girl being played by Dylan Penn, or is it by a much younger girl? But they even have Dylan Penn do like the sort of college age version too, even though she's like 30. So, that didn't help too much, or, okay, Sean Penn's character in jail, or is he out of jail? Those are the only ways you can really tell. There's no other cues than that to figure out, okay, what era of this are we in? Because most of the movie, he's out of jail, whether it's before jail or after jail. There's only a couple of scenes, really, where he's actually incarcerated. So, that didn't really help. But the directing is poor. His acting is all right. But for Sean Penn, multiple Oscar winner Sean Penn, you think, okay, better than this. And then Dylan Penn, she looks a lot like Robin Wright, her mother, because, of course, Robin was married to Sean Penn for years. She looks a lot like her, but the acting, not so much. She is horrible in this movie. She screams about every line she has, so when there is something emotional where she's supposed to be screaming, okay, it's like maybe a little bit higher up on the register, but it's like she yells almost every line she has in this movie. Now, granted, her character's, pissed at her dad the whole movie, but still, like, it didn't come together. And then the biggest, faux pas to me, the biggest egregious offense is that the soundtrack is almost entirely done by Eddie Vedder. Now, he is the lead singer of Pearl Jam, my all-time favorite band. And there's a Sean Penn connection there because Sean Penn directed Into the Wild, which Eddie Vedder also did the soundtrack to that. So there are these songs that I thought were good because, okay, it's Eddie Vedder and he's doing his thing and these are good songs. But they were so unbelievably mismatched to the movie, especially since a lot of them were like over the montages, which were sort of irritating anyway, that it did not connect at all with me. And then there was only one song that really like matched what was going on in the movie, but in that case the lyrics were so obvious. It was like, you're growing older, like it's, she's graduating high school in this scene, and it's just like, oh my god, either these music choices don't make any sense with the movie, or they're so like on the nose, it's frustrating. So this movie for me is an F. There was nothing I could find redeeming about it. It is very bad. I hope Dylan Penn does not pursue a future in acting because she just does not have what her parents have. She has. Because I like both Sean Penn, usually, not in this, but usually. And then Robin Wright, she doesn't usually give anything less than 100%. So, yeah, very bad all the way around. FFF. After watching it, I thought, well, this is one of these movies I could make like a 15-minute rant video on, but we'll kind of keep it there. And you may hear about it again in the best of and worst of 2021 in a few weeks. So, all right, let's close with Candyman, shall we? This is a direct sequel to the original 1992 Candyman. It is called the same thing, but it's not a reboot. In fact, many people reprised their roles, including Tony Todd. But this takes place in the present day, and we return to the Chicago neighborhood where the legend began. It's now been gentrified, and there's a lot of Black and Hispanic families living there. Jordan Peele co-wrote the screenplay to this, so going into it, we do, and I didn't know that at the time. But afterwards, I sort of looked up the credits and I saw his name. I thought, okay, that actually makes a lot of sense. I didn't quite. It wasn't like so on the nose, but I did think like because it's got some political commentary for sure, and it's got sort of that not straight ahead horror that I feel like the original had. It's been years since I've seen the original, so I'm not positive that it had that same sort of political bent to it. I don't really think it did, but so, you know, the last of the Cabrini Towers have been torn down, so now we've built lofts and stuff and different apartments, but Candyman still reigns supreme here. So yeah, and the stars of this then are Yahya Abdul Mateen, who was in he keeps showing up in things. I think he was in The Trial of Chicago 7. I think he may have been in he was in the latest Matrix movie. And I think he was in The Watchmen too, the miniseries, not the movie. So he's kind of the star of this, along with the girl playing his girlfriend, Tiana Paris, and she's been in a lot of things too. This is another really good horror movie. It's not quite up there for me with Night House, but I think it really takes the legend of the Candyman that we knew from 30 years ago, and I guess now that we're in 2022, we are exactly 30 years past the original, and it sort of definitely takes a slightly different turn with it, but it builds on the legend at the same time. I don't think it does anything to desecrate the legend, and obviously with Tony Todd's sort of stamp of approval on coming back, okay, you know, we're really getting the look and the feel of that original movie, which I think is pretty much regarded as a horror classic at this point. I saw it for the first time in the late 90s, and then again, like I said, about 5 or 6 years ago. And both times it really had this great impact on me. The chills in it are very riveting, and I found a lot of that same stuff in this new version. Now, I do think at an hour and 31 minutes, I do feel that the movie pulls at too many threads, that it never really gets to resolve all of them. A lot of things are sort of just left hanging in the air because of that shorter runtime. I think they could have maybe tacked on an extra 15 or 20 minutes and nobody would have said like, oh, this movie's so long. An hour and 45, hour 50 minutes, I think would have been fine for this movie, especially with sort of 3 different writers, each having their own sort of lean on the movie. I can sort of tell which parts, you know, Jordan Peele was the most attracted to writing, now that I know he was part of it. But yeah, I think it definitely could have been a little bit longer, but I think it is a very, very worthy sequel to that original. It's sort of, from what I read, it kind of negates the other sequels. Like, it doesn't really involve Candyman 2, or I think there was a third one as well. I think those are sort of, you know, swept under the rug a little bit in favor of making this a direct sequel. But that sort of is the thing now, right? Halloween did it as well. They sort of forgot about all of the other Halloween movies and made the 2018 one a direct sequel to the first one. So, all right, that's kind of where we're going these days with horror reboots. And again, this is less of a reboot and more of a direct sequel, which I liked. So overall, I think this is a very, very good horror movie. Another good one for 2021. Not quite up there with The Night House for me, but I will leave Candyman with a B+. So, like I said, we really ran the gamut here from A- to F on these 6 movies and kind of everything in between. We had a B and a C as well. So, yes, a couple to avoid and a few maybe to check out, especially, you know, if you're looking for new horror movies that you have not checked out yet. Night House, I think, is definitely going to be on my year-end list of, in terms of best horror movies, for sure, up there with Quiet Place Part 2, I guess. So that will do it. We'll be back with more monthly movie reviews. We have a few left, September, October, and then November, December is going to be in one video because, you know, with the Oscars coming out towards December, I saw a lot of the December releases, so we don't have many there. But that will do it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see everybody next time. Bye.